Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. Gonna do kind of a, I guess you can call it a copycat video actually. Frank over at channel 33 RPM, one of my absolute favorite channels in the vinyl community. He's also kind of one of the bigger channels in the vinyl community. He has like 63,000 subs or something like that, and every single one of them so well deserved. Just an awesome, entertaining, kind of overall music channel, doing more than just showing the new records that he got and that type of thing. One of my absolute favorite series by him is one he calls Vinyl Dens, where people from all over the world are sending him photographs and information about their music rooms. And he does a series called Vinyl Dens where he just kind of goes through and shows and shares all these things. And it's freaking awesome. I absolutely love the series. Not to mention he has my favorite theme music to any channel in the VC as well, which is kind of cool. But yeah, go check Frank out if for some reason you don't know him. The link's right down below. And he did a video the other day, and it was titled "Dear Record Collectors, We Don't Talk About This Often Enough." And it was basically like 6 or 7 really cool questions from some of his subscribers, and I really enjoyed them. I enjoyed his responses, and I sent him a message and just kind of asked, hey, would you mind if I did a video myself, kind of taking the exact same questions, just kind of copying yours? And he was like, yeah, that'd be cool. Go for it. And so that's what I'm doing. So I appreciate it, Frank. Like I said, if you don't know him, definitely go down and check out the video down below. And yeah, I just kind of wrote down the timestamps here so I would go right where the questions were. And the first question was, I'm at the point where I've built my collection to include the bedrock sets of bands and artists I cherish, uh, and a whole lot of one-offs too. But after a hard drive at that, the thrill of the hunt is sort of gone. It's still my preferred at-home medium, of course, but in the summer I'm outside if I'm not sleeping or at work. So I'm not inside spinning much from May to October, really. Maybe it's going to be a seasonal thing. Not sure. You dealing with this as well? So definitely a good question for people that have maybe been collecting for quite some time. I definitely know that feeling of kind of like the thrill of the hunt is sort of gone. I think back when I first started collecting, what, 17, 18 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that actually, it was a very normal thing that you had $50 and you went into a record store, you expected to come out with 25, 27 records for 50 bucks. Because back then, like a lot of your core classics in great condition, your Huey Lewis and the News Sports, your Billy Joel the Stranger, all that type of stuff, those were regular dollar bin or $1.99 records in excellent to near mint condition. The good old days. So, I mean, yeah, there was a much bigger thrill because you knew every time you left the house with 50 bucks, you were coming back home with 25, 30 records. And once you kind of build that bedrock, as he put it, yeah, it's that thrill can kind of disappear, or the way I see it is you have to shift it in a different direction and allow yourself to change as a collector. Because like where I get that thrill now is, yes, I got all my bedrock LPs, which I would say for the most part I was probably at, um, you know 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And then I decided the next level of my thrill of the hunt is getting everything in fantastic condition and really kind of tightening up the condition of my collection. So I purged a lot of the bedrock things, and now I was looking for, let's say, Billy Joel the Stranger still. I'm looking for an absolute excellent to near mint copy. But then I fulfilled all those bedrocks. So now what I started looking for is I'm looking for half speed remasters or white label promos of Billy Joel the Stranger. And that becomes my new thrill of the hunt. So, kind of upgrading my collecting habits and kind of upgrading my collection has been a lot of what's kept my fuel and my fire kind of going, in terms of that thrill of the hunt. Um, and of course, that thrill of finding something doesn't come as frequently anymore because maybe I'll find one of those type of things every 6 times I go into a record store. So before, where every time I was coming out with 25 records, now it's like I'm lucky if every 5 or 6 times I go to a record store, I come out with one record that I really, really want or something like that. So yeah, so that's kind of how I've worked my thrill of the hunt, is just kind of changing a little bit what I've been hunting for, because a lot of the titles that I was hunting for before, I have the titles. Now it's about the hunt for the quality and the hunt for the very rare pressings for me personally. The other piece you mentioned there about, being inside, pretty much from May to October, and so you're not really inside spinning. I think that's something you can actually use to your advantage, because as music lovers and vinyl record collectors, we can have a tendency to be kind of get into addictive behaviors and that type of thing. And being human, it's always easy for us to burn ourselves out on things without really realizing it. So if you kind of automatically have this cool built-in thing that pulls you away from your collection from, May to October, to me it's kind of cool that you can step away without, feeling bad about it, and then just to be able to come back so fresh in November or whatever else and re-engage with your collection. I think that that's an awesome built-in buffer to keep you really kind of pumped and connected with going back to your collection and not burning yourself out. So I think it's actually kind of cool. Um, so next one's at about 329, somewhere right around there. And the question is, how many records in your collection have not been played in a year or more? Really, really great question. Because I've gotten a lot of comments over the years when people look at my collection and say something like, there's no way you could listen to all those records. You're just doing this because of blah, 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 blah. Like that type of stuff. And I would say, I could have looked it up too. I should have before I turned the video, looked at my database. But I'm somewhere right around 5,000 LPs. And I would say, like, literally a few thousand of my albums I have not listened to in the past year or so. I mean, probably a vast majority of my collection I have not listened to in the past year or so. Um, Now, one thing I'll kind of add on to that is when it comes to how frequently I listen to albums, that has zero to do if I want it in my collection or not. Because I know a lot of people tend to think like that. And there's nothing wrong with it if that's the way you go, where I'm not really listening to these that often, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them and purge them. For me, frequency of listening, like I said, has zero to do with whether I keep an album or whether it's in my collection. The only thing that matters is it an album that has stuff on it that I love, that I want to hear again, or emotions that I want to feel again because of what's on this album? That is all that matters. If the answer to that question is yes, that album is in my collection. Doesn't make a difference if it's 1 year, 2 years, whatever between listening to that album. I don't care, because my collection to me is more so about not the frequency of what I'm listening to. I want my collection, or actually I should say what it is it's it's the story of my life. It's my autobiography. So just because I don't think about one of the great memories that I had back in high school, for example, which I'm sure I could sit here and think of something right now that was a great time in high school, I really loved it, but I haven't thought about it in years. That doesn't mean I want that memory erased because I'm not thinking about it that much. It was part of my life, and at some point in time, something will happen where I'll go back to that memory and I will enjoy it because it's part of me. My record collecting is like the exact same way. These are all my memories and my emotions stored on this shelf that I love. So, like I kind of mentioned the other day in my last What's Been Spinning video from like a week or two ago, I showed a White Stripes album that I played. I have not spun that album in 4 or 5 years, something like that. But it was just, for whatever reason, last week was the week when I had the urge to go play that album. And if I would have gotten rid of it 3 years ago, because it's been 2 years since I played this, or since I spun it, so I need to get rid of it, it wouldn't have been there last week when I actually had the fire and desire to listen to it. So that's why that time frame on how often I spin, zero to do with whether something's in my collection or not. I have to love it and want it. That's the key. So yeah, really good question there. I know I kind of added on a bit there, but that's a really good question. The next one here was about 457-ish, somewhere in there. What are your thoughts on multiple copies of the same album, and would you recommend this to a new collector? That's always been a very easy answer for me because that is completely and totally subjective. There's no right or wrong answer to that. Much like I was just playing off of the question I just answered, your collection should represent what makes you happy and you excited. That when you walk into your collection in your music world, it makes you go and like gives you the giggles and the chills and the the happiness. So if having four different pressings of Master of Puppets by Metallica, if that gives you joy, yes, you should have multiple copies, multiple pressings. You should. If it drives you crazy or if it constantly makes you think, man, I don't need four copies of that. I could sell three of those and actually use that to go buy Ride the Lightning and Kill 'Em All and have the like that would make me happier. Then sell them. You should not have multiple copies. You should sell them and get those other albums that you want. Your collection needs to make you happy. And so the answer to that question is should be more so do having multiple copies of the same album make you happy or do having multiple copies make you feel bad? And you go with whatever answer that you have there. Absolutely no wrong answer there. Completely and totally individual there. The second part, would you recommend this to a new collector? Now, in general, if I'm talking to a new collector, I might suggest to think about as expensive as vinyl is, and you probably don't have money just, falling off the trees in your backyard. You may want to focus on grabbing more multiple albums of things that you want to be the core of your collection. That might be more of a focus you want to pay attention to than having multiple copies of the same album. But ultimately, what I just said matters more. If you having multiple copies because that makes you happier, even if your collection is 30 albums, then you do the multiple copies. Be happy with your collection. That is the most important thing. Screw what me or anybody else says about what you should or should not have whatsoever. Let's see, 748, somewhere right around there at least. There it is. Do you ever enter your music room thinking you want to spin an LP and then think of the work involved, realize you're not in the mood for all that, and say, screw it, I'll just stream, or I'll just stream something? Um, yeah, I think one thing I've done a pretty good job of, I shouldn't say do a pretty good job of, I've learned about myself over the years is trusting my gut about what I'm wanting in that moment and not hesitating to turn on a dime based on how I'm feeling. I'll give you a prime example. This week, I got the urge to listen to Anita Baker, right? So I went and grabbed a beautiful music on vinyl pressing, and I threw it on the turntable. I got to the second song on the turntable, and I'm just sitting here doing some stuff on the computer, listening to it. I have no idea why. I thought, I don't want to listen to this on vinyl. I want to listen to it. I want to listen on CD. Like, I don't know why. Something in me wanted to hear the album on CD. And I'm thinking about it because the CD is actually still sitting right there. And so I went, took the record off, went and grabbed the CD, put the CD on, and boom, I listened to the entire thing. So I'll do that in a heartbeat if I come downstairs, I turn on the preamp and all this type of stuff, and all of a sudden, I just don't feel like really listening to music at all. I'd rather watch TV. I'll shut it all down, take off. You know, I won't hesitate to change what it is that I thought I was going to do because I really do trust my gut about this is what I really want to experience right now in my musical world and just kind of go with it. So really good question there too, kind of a funny one. Let's see. Next one is about 9:42ish, somewhere in there. What do you do with records you'll never listen to? And he says, in my case, old gospel music. Now, I don't really have a lot of records that I'll never really listen to. Number one, because of the question I just answered earlier, but then also, like, I pretty much don't find myself ever buying like collections anymore, where I come home with a big old box of records and I, pull 20 things out I want to keep, and there's all this other stuff I want to get rid of. Pretty much everything that comes into my house at this point in time, like it's always something that I love, and so it's kind of something that doesn't leave my collection. So if I do have a situation where, let's say Billy Joel the Stranger again, I have a nice US pressing, I get a white label promo, so now I'm going to get rid of the US pressing. Normally, I'll just throw it on Discogs. That's my most common way of getting rid of any little thing here or there, but that's not very frequent at all. Let's see, last question here. What are your plans to sell your collection and not burden your family with dealing with it? Usually that's always a when you die type of question, but I guess it's still kind of in there maybe. But I'll kind of do both, like if I'm still alive or if I die. If I'm still alive, I actually do have kind of this fantasy about experiencing selling my collection. You know, I think ideally when I kind of get towards retirement, one of the things I really like to do is to travel all around the country, like full-time RVing for a few years. I think that would just be absolutely awesome and would be a great time to go about, starting to really sell off my collection. And and when I think about selling off my collection, I really fantasize about it, not just getting on Discogs and selling everything, because every single piece I have is in Discogs, the exact pressing and all of that. So it would be as simple as, hitting the sell one of these kind of thing. But I actually see myself maybe going to record shows, you know, two or 3 years prior to really getting to that mark and just being a seller at a record show. And the same way that I've had that excitement of finding something at a show and being really excited about it and, blah, 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 I think it'd be kind of cool to be on the selling side of that too and see some of my pieces actually go to people that I've been looking for this for, I don't know how long and blah, blah, blah. Like, I would like to experience that on the seller side as well. So I definitely kind of see myself going that route, spending maybe a couple of years going through the process of kind of selling everything. Um, so yeah, I mean, in terms of if something were to happen to me and that type of thing, I do have a database. I've talked to my mom about, you know, doing some consignment type of things. And on the back of each, actually I have this sitting here because I was playing it a little while ago. I've always kind of shown like on the back of each record how I have these little stickers that I put on there where I kind of label the condition of the vinyl, condition of the cover, the year of the album, what pressing it is, and then the approximate value. So that way, if I were to, to pass away and my mother comes in with my collection, she's not gonna have somebody come along and say, "Oh yeah, well, I'll give you $20 for that Firehouse album." He's like, "Well, she knows nothing about vinyl whatsoever, but I know my son just told me this is a 1991 South Korean pressing, and he says it's worth about $200. So how are you going to offer me $20 for that?" Like, at the very least, she's not going to get ripped off in that regard. And then what I also do, and kind of what I'm doing now, as you can see, that's kind of a smaller sticker there. I just had these new stickers made that I've been replacing on the back of all my LPs, going through each one. And in the process of replacing each one, I'm looking up each album again, so kind of, revising current values, as well as looking at each album and just going through and double checking the condition I put on it the first time. So I'm going through and rechecking every single album in my collection right now, putting the new stickers on there. So trying to keep it as up to date in case it is one of those, I fall off the face of the earth type of things. So anyway, there you go. This video is running kind of long there, but that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do it. I really enjoyed those questions and enjoyed Frank's responses to them, so I wanted to jump on board. As always, Frank, love your channel, man. Thanks for letting me kind of do this, and we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, VC.